Okay, so Grandpa, so going back to the idea of like software, I would read you quotes and stuff, and you would be able to tell what software the person was operating under. So I remember one example. After this, also want to talk about the deadly bees though, and also there's so much stuff I want to talk about. So the we're talking about software, deadly bees. But before we go on, actually, could we talk about chicken shit? And because I asked you that before, what the Pearl's idea of like chicken shit and horse shit and all that stuff, or
Yeah.
bullshit.
Well, if you don't want to use that terminology, there's um, teaching, preaching, and communicating. See, teaching is giving answers to questions that are not yet being asked. Preaching is giving giving answers that you don't to question. No, answering questions with answers that you haven't discovered for yourself. You're just passing them on to something else. It's called wisdom spoken without understanding, and communicating is responding from a different from a different dimension, from a dimension of understanding, and so um, which is better to be a teacher, a preacher, or a communicator, or as Fritz Perls called it, just scratching around on the surface, just surface chit chat. So, what he was suggesting is that much communication is simply either surface chit chat, teaching, preaching, or rarely it's communicating. And hopefully, that's what we're doing here in these videos: is communicating wisdom with some understanding. Now, obviously, some of the things that we've talked about here can be seen simply as teaching or preaching. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just there's no benefit in that. So giving answers to questions that are not yet asked, that's what much religious education is all about. We're giving answers to children before they're ever strong enough or even interested enough in asking the question. They haven't even discovered the question, and here we are giving them the answer. And then they get to be teenagers and young adults, and they begin to realize these answers don't mean a thing in their life, and they have no value, so they become rebel and they think they're wrong. See, the answers are not necessarily wrong. It's just that they're useless until um, um, they fill the empty bucket of an open inquiry. See, once you begin to wrestle with Shirley and begin to inquire, then an answer will be of some benefit to you. But until you get to that point, it's just preaching and teaching.
Uh, so you talked about Shirley.
Yes.
So can you describe what you mean by wrestling with Shirley? Because uh, they might not understand what that means. So sure, its idea. What was it?
Yeah. Well, see, we all encounter some trouble, some difficulties, some things that upset us or depress us or make us angry, and we lump them all under the word problems. In other words, we all have problems in life. Now, when you have a problem, you can ignore it, you can blame other people, or you can say, "Is there something here that I could learn? Surely these problems don't need to keep recurring in my life." So, so that's what awakens in us the desire to understand something more, or what I call upgrade our software. If things aren't working the way I'm currently working, maybe there's another way that I could be approaching life, that I could be seeing things, that I could be participating in life. And that's what I call wrestling with Shirley.
So you would describe it as rendezvousing with Shirley. It's almost like you're cheating with Shirley, right? Like
Yeah,
you're with your wife, but then you go to Shirley a little bit.
yeah, yeah.
Like there's more. Surely there's more to life than this.
And then I used to say often, if you're going to start wrestling with Shirley, however, you better be willing to go all the way.
Oh yeah. And why is that, Grandpa?
Well, because you're going to encounter a lot of difficulties, but if you want to really benefit, you got to be willing to go all the way.
And you see, the thing is, it's so dangerous to run neighborhood. It really is dangerous.
Yeah.
Because if you don't go all the way, which is a funny way to say it, if you don't go all the way, then you're going to be stuck at a software level that's one of the dangerous software levels, right?
Yep.
And it can be super dangerous to be at that. And unless you have a Sherpa, which a Sherpa, we'll talk about what a Sherpa is, but unless you have someone like a spiritual teacher or something, then how are you going to move beyond this? You might end up killed. You might end up in a mental hospital. You might end up beat up, because when you're rendezvousing with Shirley, things can get dangerous.
Yeah.
Right.
Or you might get stuck. You see, that appears to be the greatest danger. The greatest danger is if you don't go all the way, you can assume that you're in a superior position. So I used to also often say, when you start inquiring and seeking, you can't get lost. If you're willing to go all the way, you can't get lost. The only way you can get lost is to assume that you've already arrived.
That's interesting, huh?
Yeah, that's one of the greatest dangers of not going all the way, is that assumption, that impression that I finally arrived.
I figured it out. Yeah.
Yeah.
I got it all understood. There's allies and enemies, and
yeah,
and I know who's the good guys, who's the bad guys, and
yeah,
and I'm saved, and
I'm saved. I'm going to go to heaven, and only those of us who are like me, only those of us who go to the same church and believe the same things and behave in the same way and have the same emotional experiences are going to get to heaven. We've arrived, and that's a sure sign of being lost.
So, but the thing is, though, then someone would counter that and say, okay, so you think that, okay, so you're one of those guys, you're one of them, because you're one of those guys who thinks that that I don't have the truth, and I do have the truth, but you're one of those guys who's a pluralist, and you're saying no, if you believe that, then you're lost, and I know your type of people, and they're gonna put up their guards, right?
Yeah. Well, so if I'm a pluralist, am I lost? Yes. If I settle for pluralism, I'm lost.
Because then you think you figured it out.
Yeah.
But instead of settling for pluralism, which means everybody's right and there is no truth, you're continuing to seek for the truth. Is this related to Jesus in any way? How did Jesus? I remember I would read the stories with you, and there were examples that were amazing, but I don't remember them now. But what are examples of this?
Yeah, none come to mind right.
But when I was reading through this stuff, it was. But okay, so you don't want to be judgmental. One thing. So one thing that you would say is there's a difference between being discerning, and being judgmental. And also, you talked about Any thoughts of that, Grandpa?
No, yeah, that's just a very important distinction. Judgmentalism and discernment. See, it's necessary to develop the quality of discernment so that you can. That's what Jesus was talking about when he said, I didn't come to bring peace, but I came to bring sword. I came to bring an awareness or an ability to discern and separate the truth from the lie. And that's a necessary quality. It's a necessary and useful capability to be able to discern and separate the truth from the lie. But once you do that, you don't need to pass judgment. It's not that it's wrong, it's just that it won't get you there. And you're not there. So it's important to have capacity for discernment. Because if you judge it, then you're stuck with it. Then you try to fix it. Or you try to get rid of it.
Any thoughts on that, Grandpa?
No.
So I remember you talk about, some people hate things and are against things, but it's funny because you'll find someone who's like a super against alcohol, but then he ends up drinking alcohol, or like someone who's like super against gay people, like like some of those preachers, and they end up being homosexual and stuff. But this idea of or they end up having sex with some guy or something. But this idea of you don't want to hate things because you're still focused on it when you hate it. But what is this whole idea? Like?
Well, there's an old metaphor about the devil's pitchfork, that there are 3 points on the devil's pitchfork, and the devil can get you stuck when you hate something and try to destroy it, when you fear something and try to avoid it, or when you love something and try to embrace it and join it. Anyway, any of those will keep you stuck. The devil will keep you stuck on that pitchfork. So it's of no benefit to hate something and try to destroy it, because if you hate it, you have to be involved with it. If you fear something and try to avoid it, you have to be involved with it. You have to believe that it's real and that it can have power over you and keep you stuck. Well, it will keep you stuck if you keep trying to avoid it. It's like going to bed when we're children, going to bed and wanting to have the light on all night. You can be afraid of boogeymen outside your door, and it reminds me of a story of a person I was talking with at one time who bought a new car, and every night after he bought this new car, he experienced the car being stolen. It never got stolen, but he lived under the fear that his car might be stolen. So he experienced a stolen car every night because he was always fearing it, even though it never got stolen. And the other way to be constantly stuck is to want something and embrace it and join it. So if you don't do any of those 3, what's left? You run.
So you run. Like Forrest Gump ran?
Yeah, like Forrest Gump. You ran. You just get busy pursuing something. Not attacking or avoiding or embracing, but running in an expectancy.
So you're running.
You're raising your level.
So you're not focused on whatever that thing is. So if you hate it, then you're focused on it. If you love it, you're still focused on it. Wait, what's wrong with love? If you fear it, you're still focused on it. What were them again? Fear it, hate it.
Yeah, hate it, fear it, or want it.
Or want it. And what's wrong with wanting it?
Well, you're stuck with it. See, what do you want? That's what the man at the sheep gate pool. He wanted his excuses and reasons and his judgments about other people. That's what he wanted.
What was my original question that brought us to this again?
I don't know.
So, what about the idea of be about your father's business? About your father's business. Being about your father's business. What was that?
Yeah, that was a story of. When Jesus was left at the temple when he was 12 years old, and the parents came back and said, "How could you do that to us? And we've been worried, and we called 911 and everything. We did everything under our power to get you back." And he said, "Just be cool. Don't get all excited. We wanted you to come back because you had work back at home. You had business to take care of back at home." Jesus said, "Don't you know I must be about my Father's business, which is inquiry, discovery, waking up and growing up." That's the hero's journey.
So he was probably studying with the
people,
and that's what the inquiry that he was involved in. But a lot of people would say, well, Jesus, he's born as as God. Like, why would he need to inquire? Doesn't he already know everything? Or any thoughts of this, Grandpa?
Yeah, well, that's one story told about Jesus, the character Jesus. Maybe that story is true, but I doubt it.
So then they also talk about children are you talk about Jesus said in order to enter the kingdom of heaven you must be like a child. Why a child?
Yeah, well, a child is open. Child is a natural born explorer. And all children are natural born explorers until it gets shut down to some degree. It gets shut down. It's also quite clear, just as an aside, some children very early seem to be have a greater proclivity to exploring than others. I don't understand why that is, but it is enough evidence to indicate that that is so.
Yeah, they have a head start.
Yeah,
over others.
some of us hit the road running.
Did I hit the road running, Grandpa?
Yeah.
So any other thoughts of that, Grandpa?
No.
Think that's good for now?
Yep.
Do you want to do